The Vatican, a historical overview of power, wealth, and corruption. The Vatican, the spiritual and administrative center of the Roman Catholic Church, has long been a symbol of religious authority and influence. Yet, beneath its sacred veneer lies a history marked by corruption, political maneuvering, and the pursuit of power and wealth. As I've often pointed out, the Vatican is just like any other powerful entity, corrupt and operating above the law. Religion, particularly when wielded by those in power, has often been transformed into a business and a powerful tool for controlling the masses. The ties between the Vatican and other powerful entities, such as the Mafia, as hinted at in The Godfather Part 3, unearth the dark side of an institution that has long been revered by millions. The Vatican's rise to power. The Vatican's origins can be traced back to the early days of Christianity, but its rise as a powerful entity began in earnest with the establishment of the Papal States in the 8th century. These territories, governed directly by the Pope, provided the Church with both spiritual authority and temporal power. Over the centuries, the Vatican expanded its influence, not just through the spread of Christianity, but also through political alliances, military conquests, and strategic marriages. During the Middle Ages, the Vatican wielded immense power across Europe, often influencing the rise and fall of kings. The Pope was not just a spiritual leader but a political one, and the Vatican's wealth grew exponentially through donations, land acquisitions, and the collection of tithes. However, this accumulation of power and wealth did not come without its share of corruption. The sale of indulgences, simony, the buying and selling of church offices, and nepotism became rampant, leading to widespread criticism and eventually the Protestant Reformation. Religion as a tool for power and wealth. Throughout history, religion has often been used as a tool by those seeking power and wealth. The Vatican is no exception. The Church's vast wealth and influence made it an attractive target for those who sought to manipulate its teachings for their gain. The idea that religion can be a business, as well as a means of controlling the masses, is not a new one. Men like Cardinal Richelieu and Gregory Rasputin are prime examples of religious figures who used their positions to amass power and wealth. Cardinal Richelieu, the chief minister to King Louis XIII of France, was a master of political manipulation. Although a cardinal, Richelieu was more of a statesman than a spiritual leader. He used his position to centralize power in France, weaken the nobility, and enhance the monarchy's authority, all while enriching himself and the Church. Richelieu's actions demonstrate how religion, in the hands of the ambitious, can be twisted into a tool for personal and political gain. Similarly, Gregory Rasputin, the mystic and confidant of the Russian royal family, wielded immense influence over the Romanovs, particularly Tsarina Alexandra. Rasputin's rise to power was marked by a mix of religious mysticism, manipulation, and corruption. Though not a member of the Vatican, Rasputin's story serves as a reminder that religious figures, when corrupted, can lead entire nations astray. The Vatican and the Mafia. A symbiotic relationship? The ties between the Vatican and the Mafia, as depicted in The Godfather Part 3, highlight the extent to which corruption can infiltrate even the most sacred institutions. While the film is a work of fiction, it draws on real-life events and rumors surrounding the Vatican's involvement in money laundering, organized crime, and political assassinations. One of the most infamous cases is the collapse of the Banco Ambrosiano in the 1980s, a major financial scandal that implicated the Vatican Bank. The bank's chairman, Roberto Calvi, was found hanging under a bridge in London in what appeared to be a mafia-style execution. Calvi, known as God's banker, had ties to both the Vatican and the Mafia, and his death exposed the murky world of Vatican finances. The Vatican's involvement in such scandals suggests that, like any other powerful entity, it is not immune to corruption. The institution's vast wealth and influence make it a target for those seeking to exploit it for their gain. When the shepherd is untrustworthy, it's no surprise the flock suffers. The dark history of the papacy, criminal popes, and the abuse of power. Adding to the narrative of corruption is the history of criminal behavior among some of the Vatican's most revered leaders, the popes themselves. A CNN documentary has shed light on the fact that many of the popes throughout history were far from saintly. In fact, some were deeply involved in criminal activities, using their positions not to guide the faithful, but to expand their own power and wealth under the guise of religion. These popes, far from embodying the virtues they preached, were often engaged in activities that would be considered criminal by any standard. From the notorious Borgia family, whose reign in the 15th and 16th centuries was marked by murder, simony, and nepotism, to more recent scandals involving financial mismanagement and cover-ups of sexual abuse, the history of the papacy is riddled with examples of leaders who exploited their religious authority for personal gain. The documentary highlights how these popes manipulated their spiritual power to shield themselves from accountability, effectively operating above the law. Their crimes were often hidden under the cloak of religious sanctity, allowing them to continue their nefarious activities without fear of retribution. This history serves as a stark reminder that, like any other powerful institution, the Vatican has been susceptible to the corrupting influence of power and wealth. The hypocrisy of celibacy, a lie shrouded in secrecy. One of the most glaring hypocrisies within the Catholic Church is the vow of celibacy, a practice that has been portrayed as a sign of spiritual purity and devotion. However, the reality behind this vow is far more troubling. The majority of priests, who publicly commit to a life of celibacy, have been involved in secret relationships with prostitutes, married women, and nuns. Many children are fathered by Catholic priests, yet these facts are systematically covered up to preserve the Church's facade of moral integrity. The existence of these secret relationships and illegitimate children is an open secret within the Church, yet it is carefully concealed to protect the image of priests as holy men devoted solely to God. The Church has gone to great lengths to cover up these transgressions, moving priests from parish to parish, silencing victims, and paying hush money to prevent scandals from erupting. The celibacy requirement, rather than being a testament to spiritual dedication, has instead become a symbol of the Church's deep-seated hypocrisy. This hypocrisy is not just a modern issue, but one that has plagued the Church for centuries. The vow of celibacy has been a convenient tool for the Vatican to maintain control over its clergy, ensuring that priests remain dependent on the Church for their livelihood. By forbidding marriage and sexual relations, the Church effectively isolated its clergy, making them easier to manipulate and control. Meanwhile, the reality of their lives was often far removed from the idealized image presented to the faithful. Religion and modern warfare, the false gods of power and greed. In contemporary times, particularly under U.S. leadership, religion continues to be exploited as a means to justify wars and propagate lies. Political leaders often invoke religious rhetoric to rally support, portraying themselves as devout believers guided by divine principles. Yet, their actions reveal that their true gods are money and greed, not the spiritual values they claim to uphold. The use of religion to justify wars is a tactic as old as history itself, but in today's world, it has reached new heights of cynicism. Leaders who profess to be God-fearing are often the same ones who authorize wars of aggression, destabilize entire regions, and cause untold suffering, all in the pursuit of economic and geopolitical gain. The wars in the Middle East, for example, have often been framed as battles between good and evil, with the U.S. positioning itself as the defender of Christian values. However, the underlying motivations are far more pragmatic, centered around control of resources, strategic dominance, and the enrichment of defense contractors and political elites. This manipulation of religious sentiment for material gain is yet another example of how religion is used by those in power to achieve their ends. Just as the Vatican has historically exploited its religious authority to amass wealth and influence, modern political leaders use the language of faith to mask their true intentions. The hypocrisy is glaring. They preach peace and love, yet they wage wars that devastate entire populations. They claim to follow God's will, yet their actions are driven by the basest of human desires: power, wealth, and control. Conclusion: the Vatican as a mafia. The Vatican's history is a testament to the dangers of unchecked power and wealth within religious institutions. While the Church has undoubtedly played a significant role in shaping Western civilization, it has also been a breeding ground for corruption and abuse. The ties between the Vatican and powerful criminal organizations, as well as the actions of figures like Richelieu and Rasputin, reveal the dark side of an institution that many hold sacred. Moreover, the revelations about criminal behavior among the popes themselves, the deep-seated hypocrisy surrounding the vow of celibacy, and the modern-day exploitation of religion by political leaders, all the fact that no human is a saint in this world. Religion, like any other profession, can be used by men to acquire power and wealth. The Vatican, with its long history of influence and corruption, serves as a stark reminder that even the most revered institutions can fall prey to the basest of human desires. In many ways, the Vatican operates much like a mafia, with its leaders using the cover of religion to further their own interests, often at the expense of the very souls they claim to protect. Similarly, in today's world, political leaders continue this tradition of using religion as a facade for their pursuit of power and wealth, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake.